Hi everyone, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, and I'm excited today for our next chapter of Next Gen, and I'm with John and Graham Miller and their beautiful daughter Audrey, and they are located in Maryland with Long Lesson Kennels. How are you guys?
We're good.
Doing good, doing good.
Good. I'm glad we have the whole family here today. Family, I know, is a big part of you both, with your life in dogs, having grown up in dogs. Why don't we start with talking about that and talking about what your respective families were doing in dogs and how that has kind of played into your involvement today?
No worries.
I am a fifth generation, so I basically went down into the sport. My grandparents, sorry.
That's dogs, that's all right.
Yeah, my great-grandmother actually had some Chihuahuas that were shown, and then my grandmother and her sister started with Dachshunds, and when my grandparents married, they continued with the Dachshunds and established Long Lesson Kennels in the 1950s, and then they added Afghan Hounds and later Whippets. So that's kind of how I got my start. And my mom was a professional handler. We still breed Whippets today. And so.
You guys have been doing very well with that recent litter I've seen.
Yes. We're very, very excited about them.
That's amazing. What about you, John? What was your start like?
Well, I was born into it, I guess. I didn't really have a choice, I guess. But I took a little bit of a different route. I helped my mom do a lot of stuff, and I hung around with them, and I learned from a lot of greats and people in dogs, listened and had a love for the dogs, but not necessarily a love for the show ring.
Yeah.
And then I'm 33, so about 30 years ago, my dad got kind of put into a job, site control, but it wasn't site control then. Little did I know how that would kind of affect me and my role in dogs and AKC and all that.
Did you just kind of start helping with the site stuff like from the beginning and keep up with it?
Yeah, it kind of gave me a reason not to go to school.
That's very fair.
And I just kind of, I don't know, I guess sometimes you just kind of, I guess, got thrust into something, and I started really enjoying it, and the more, the longer I did it, the more I did it, the more I realized I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the aspect of being able to help people. And as since being, a preteen, I guess would be the way to say it nowadays, like I've been doing it literally almost my whole life, and in one role or another, and I just kind of kept growing and growing and growing, and here we are now.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a niche kind of skill set and talent, because not many people would be able to be faced with the, put on the whole show and the production that goes into that and keeping that running smoothly, especially in a year like this with all of these changes. How has that been for you guys with all the adaptations?
You just kind of learn to roll with the punches, and it's crazy. Like, we've had some situations recently and people have asked me, how did you do that? I said, we planned for that to happen anyway. That's all. Yeah. It's like you get hit with curve balls, but, hopefully you can still hit a home run when you do it. And we just try to plan for everything to keep,
I love that.
To keep the ball, keep the punches rolling.
That is awesome. Graham, how's it been for you this year with, your business as far as a handler, but then I know also you've been really able to focus on some breeding recently with your recent litter. How's this year been?
It's definitely been different, and it's been a challenge in some ways, and it's also been kind of a refreshing, pause for us. I had several dogs that stayed during the pandemic when we were on lockdown, so that, the board coming in from that really helped me to, keep my business open. And I was able to really evaluate the dogs I had, during the break, and I could focus on some of my own dogs and because my heart really is in breeding. So, I'm able to really focus on them and train and, keep that part of it, alive, I guess.
With mine, the trips to Lowe's. It allowed Gwen to socialize some of the babies by trips to Lowe's and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. It gives you time to focus on your, like, the part that keeps you in this and the passion behind dogs in general, right?
And, you know, when you're going like we were going every single week, you sort of are on autopilot. And then
Survival mode.
Yeah, you're on survival mode. And then when that is just comes to a halt, it's like
Right.
you really start to see things a little bit differently and the importance of why you do what you do. And
Totally.
it was definitely eye-opening, but it's been, you know, thankfully we've stayed very healthy. Our families have stayed healthy. So we're grateful for that. And we're
That's
grateful
amazing.
for the time to be together. And we're excited for the shows. We hope they keep going.
I love that. Is Audrey involved with showing yet?
She's done some Pee Wee classes, and she practices
Aw.
all the time. She loves
Hi.
dogs.
What's your favorite dog, Audrey?
Who's your favorite? You don't want to say?
No favorites?
She says Tina and Biddy are her favorites.
Tina and Biddy. What kind of dogs are those?
2 of our whippets.
Oh, I love that. So why don't we talk about some of the more influential people other than your family that kind of helped you get to where you are today when you were younger and starting out?
Okay, so I did work with my mom. As a young person, I loved Dobermans, always. They were one of my favorite breeds as a kid. I begged my mom for one for a long, long time. I did end up getting one that was sort of a rescue situation, and she was registered, and I showed her in juniors some. Her name was Eris. Eris became extremely, extremely protective of me, and so we had to make a choice as far as keeping her. When I was, my first trip to Westminster, I walked out of, I don't know if I was watching the groups, maybe, it was a long time ago, so bear with me. But
Yeah.
as I walk out, Gwen and Carissa are standing like outside of the tunnel, and I was like, Mom, that's Gwen. And
Royalty.
and she's like, do you want to meet them? And I was like, yeah, of course I do.
Yeah.
So I met them there for the first time, and later that same year, I saw Gwen at another show, and I helped her a little bit there. And so then, you know, after I got a little older and a couple of summers, I went and worked for them, and I got my first Doberman when I was 15, and that Doberman lived 16 years old, so that was really cool. But I've also worked for Mike and Linda Pitts. I worked for Jody and Leonardo. So a lot of handlers have been really influential in helping me learn. And I mean, still to this day, if I have questions, I call them up and I ask, you know. I think that's a really important part of learning, is just realizing that you're never going to know everything. And it's really acceptable to ask a mentor or a friend or someone you think might have a little more knowledge than you, or a different way of doing it.
Totally. Rather than having that pride that you have to have it all figured out.
Right. And I just think, you know, your dogs, you know, when you're conditioning and campaigning a dog, you know, it's never, you don't have to be, it's okay not to be perfect, but it's also okay to ask questions and just to keep, you know, getting better and tweaking little things here and there. It's, you know, I think
refining it.
Yes, definitely.
I love that. Have you learned anything or applied anything, I guess, from the way that they invested in you to how you work with other younger people or juniors or people who work with you?
Oh, definitely. I just try to, you know, as far as the younger generation goes, I always try to just teach them that, you know, care and how you take care of your dogs is a priority. And I think that if your dogs are happy, then that will show in everything that you do. I think that I always try to tell or encourage juniors that they don't always, you know, if they don't stay with me or if they work for me one weekend, then, you know, that's fine. But I always say, you know, find someone that lives near you now and work for them on the weekends or after school, or, you know, go on a summer trip. You know, those summer trips I went on as a kid were some of the best. And I learned so much from living with them, you know, the handlers day in and day out.
The behind the scenes.
yeah, the behind the scenes, I think it's crucial. You know, the home life, how they take care of their dogs at home, how they condition them during the week. You know, dog shows 4 and 5 days, but that's not all that we do. You know, our job is 24 hours, so 7 days a week. So I just try to encourage kids to, pick a person that you like or have respect for, or a breed that you really like. Meet the top breeder or the top handler in that breed, and
totally start with the best you can.
Right.
I love that. John, in your area of the dog show, would you say there's a need for more involvement in getting other people, younger people, involved in site control and production of the show?
I don't know if site control necessarily is cut out for everybody.
Yeah.
But I do think I would definitely welcome people wanting to do it, but I do think that there's a certain extent where I think the whole sport would benefit from seeing a different view of how a show is put on, or what it takes, instead of just being upset about, the way something may happen or the way that a certain club may decide to do something. I think that it'd be important for people to see, okay, maybe now I understand why, or most importantly, like recently I've had a lot of meetings with a lot of clubs and shows and stuff like that, and it's about trying to make everybody as happy as possible. I mean, there's no way you're going to accomplish that, but it's about that. And I think that, it's easy to make somebody who shows one dog happy, or try to make a handler, a crew with 30, 40 dogs. It's hard to make both of those.
Both of them.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that, so to answer your question, yeah, I do think that people should get involved, not necessarily from a make a living at it,
Sure. For perspective.
And stop some of that, like, maybe you won't complain when you see a club set up a certain way, or or grooming layout a certain way, or when they start to understand that there's so many things bigger than just what their
individual experience.
Yeah, that they may realize, okay, I can understand this isn't so bad.
Yeah,
Even
right.
from an East Coast, West Coast thing, like West Coasters look at things totally different than East Coasters do, and so it's just interesting to see how there's so many, not just an age gap, even a geographical gap, if you will.
Right. And I think that applies to, like, that's such a great point, that, like, not even just between, like, the aspects of who runs the show, but also just in meeting new people at a show, that there's so many different perspectives people are operating from when somebody's there with their one household pet, and they have all that kind of built up into that one experience. They're missing out on, like, what goes involved to, like, making that event happen, versus a handler who's there every weekend and might have preferences for how they like things done. That's a lot to navigate to keep people satisfied. You can't always win. Yeah. What would you guys say are some of your best family memories at a dog show, whether showing or just personal, whatever?
There's a lot. You want Graham to start, or
both? Either one. Surprise me.
Oh, wow. I mean, I think a lot. I mean, for me, obviously, I don't know. Do you want us to go in detail of certain specific?
Share it all.
One of my favorite things ever was, and it may be arrogant or whatever of me to say this, but I remember at Orlando when my mom had won the group, and we had come walking back to the grooming section, and a lot of our friends and competitors and stuff like that were all clapping after she won and that was a great moment I'll always remember.
I love that.
Winning the group at the Garden was really pretty awesome thing. And I don't know, there's a lot. Because my perspective is so different, but from the show ring side, those are pretty
totally.
Tough. And then go ahead. Let me think for a minute. I got to think.
Yeah.
I remember my mom was a handler for a long time, and she focused her handling career on sighthounds. Mm-hmm. So she's bred and showed several Afghans that won some big things, and whippets, but she never won an all breed best. So she started showing a whippet named Shannon when I was a teenager, and I remember the first best in show she won on Shannon, and how excited I was for her, and just how it made her feel. And it was a really big dog show, and it was a really cool thing, and I don't think I'll ever forget that.
That's amazing. And I think that's too, those experiences are so great to kind of ground you back to why you do what you do and kind of bring back the meaning. And again, like when you're on the road every weekend, sometimes it's harder to hold on to that.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And
I love that.
a lot more shows now too. So, you know, back then, you know, when she was showing, she went a lot, but I didn't get to go all the time. But there still weren't as many shows as there are now.
Sure. What do you guys think of the future of dog shows as we see it right now with COVID and younger generations involvement?
So like for me, that's a two-parter.
Go ahead.
The future of COVID, I don't think anybody really knows. I do think that as I've talked to multiple club members and people that we've worked for and friends and all that kind of, like, a lot of different views all over the map, so to speak. But I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. I don't know what the new normal will be, but you know, I definitely think there's going to be some type of change in general. I want it to get back to normal. You know, I want to be able to breathe.
We all do, right?
At the same time, we have to respect, in my opinion, you have to respect, you know, the virus and the rules and the protocols of the health department and the county. And you know, here goes that production part again. But you have to do all those things. You know, like this past weekend, a lot of people were, you know, making comments and stuff like that. And I just said, this is all by design. Like, this is not, you know, just because they want it this way, but this is by design. A lot of people worked really hard to make sure that show could happen and the certain ones and things that happened for that show. And Philly is one of those shows that's not really the same. It's kind of in that different air a little bit, just from production, because you have NBC and, you know,
TV
doing that stuff. It's a totally different, it's such a major audience that you have to do things that's a little bit different than
right.
You know?
Yeah, totally. What about as far as with the involvement of new people, especially given the changes with the sport shifting to less shows and more restrictions?
Those are just in general.
In general, let's say in general.
You know, I think that this we could be here for a while, but I think that
I'm here for it.
I think youth is very important in the dog show world, and a lot of like lunchtime conversations and stuff I have with people. You know, people, like, youth is something that, you know, every sport needs to grow and continue happening. And the problem in our sport that I see, and here goes ruffling some feathers, but I think when there's youth that wants to help, the older guard doesn't want to let go. And at the same time, the youth doesn't want to put in the work that the older guard did to make sure that everything is sort of seamless in a way with a modern touch and not losing what we've been over a long period of time. So I think that, you know, I think it's a very fine line between the two, but I think that a lot of the youth that we see, I think, are in it for the long haul, and a lot of them are like this one right here. Well, maybe not quite like this one, but, you know, not or, you know, but there's a lot of people that are at least second generation that are staying. And I think that, like I said earlier, kind of being born into it, I think that that's the strongest avenue for dog people. However, I do think there needs to be some type of effort made to get newer and younger people in the sport to kind of, and something that makes it enjoyable. I used to be totally against owner handler, and I love it now, because you see, like, so many, the crowds outside the rings, you see people are just happy for each other, and it's like, I just think it's really, really a good thing, and I think that owner handler will help going forward, getting more people involved and stuff like that. And look, I definitely do believe that, you know, there's one champion type of thing, you know, participation trophies, but I think that getting everybody involved and letting them work for something and earn something. I mean, let's face it, it's hard to compete against people like Graham, or, you know, compete against people like that for somebody who's got a 9-to-5 and just wants to come in and have fun with their dog. I mean, it's really difficult for them to compete. They're not trying to be number one hound in the country or number one respectively. They're trying to just have fun on the weekend and have some friends and have a cookout, or, you know, whatever it may be with the sport.
See some nice dogs,
Exactly, and I think that people have to learn there's kind of different levels to compete at. I think that's the major thing.
Yeah, I think it's totally fair. What do you think, Graham?
As far as the younger generation, I think COVID probably has taken its toll on maybe the parents of kids that are just starting out, maybe they just are just getting involved. I think that will have an effect on them as far as, hopefully they'll still come. I think in the future, as we get more comfortable in our new normal, I think that we'll learn ways to help with those, groups, and hopefully we'll be the same inviting group that we have been in the past. And we can start doing peewees again, or we can start, having clinics, or, all those things. We've adapted to having shows with COVID. I think we can adapt to, doing clinics or whatever we had done before to help.
Right.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's going to just be taking it one step at a time and
I think just one
adapting
and learning, what we can do and what we can't. And hopefully hopefully we get to a point where we're not having these surges and, starting to cancel shows again. I mean, that's just, it's definitely difficult, but I think that we'll get to a place where we can learn to adapt to that.
No, totally. That definitely makes sense. I think no one could have seen, this situation projected out to how it's been, and we really don't know where it's going to go. But the good thing about dog people is they are resilient and adaptive and hardworking, and we'll take it one day at a time, right? Amazing. Well, I think this has been a wonderful conversation. I love having the perspective of both of you guys, having grown up with so much kind of heritage in the sport, which I think is very unique to a lot of people's profession is not something that their family has generations of of involvement in. That's also a passion, and then something that you guys both share in your immediate family as well. So I think that's a really great thing to showcase, and I really appreciate your time today.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Awesome. And good to see you, Audrey. Thanks for joining. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.